Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a deep dive into the world of college admissions.
Hi, my name is Kate Strickland. I'm Associate Director of Application Review at the University of Colorado Boulder. I live in Boulder with my family, which includes a fifth grader and a freshman in high school.
Hi, I'm Hilary Dickman. I'm the Senior Assistant Director of Admission for Marketing and Communications at Colorado College, and I'm also a parent of two college students.
I'm Lisa, and I'm a clinical psychologist and college counselor. I have a daughter in college, a daughter in high school, and a son in middle school. After 30 years in Chicago, we recently moved to North Carolina.
My name is Lynda, and I'm originally from Michigan, now living in the St. Louis metro area, and have a daughter at University of Chicago.
I'm Mark Stucker, and I'm the founder and producer. Our mission is to make college knowledge available to all. We care deeply about your kid. We believe college is a match to be made and not a prize to be won. We believe in being genuine and transparent. We are committed to covering a variety of topics, including the tough subjects. Thanks to your generosity, we're committed to providing a minimum of 10 hours of fresh, commercial-free content every month, with episodes every Monday and Thursday. We have a variety of co-hosts because we believe and value diverse perspectives. You're our listening family, and we get great joy every time we meet with you, as we do our best to give you tools so your students can soar and reach their limitless potential. This week in the news, Hilary and Kate join me to discuss an article that appeared in USA Today that asked the question, are parent Facebook groups helpful or toxic? Rachel Hale is the author of the article, which is entitled College Parent Facebook Groups and When Helicopter Parenting Goes Too Far. You'll hear part 1 of 2 today. Then we'll transition and you'll hear the final part of my interview with Lisa and Lynda about their new book, The Calm College Method. And finally, you'll hear the final part 3 of 3 of my interview with Susan Brisson, the Director of Admission at Olin College of Engineering. And friends, before we dive into the article, I have to tell you, you guys probably know I love doing this podcast. I love almost every single aspect of it. I have to throw almost in there because I never have liked doing show notes. You know, when Anika left the podcast, has it been 5 years now? It's about 5 years. 5 years ago, she's like, I feel so bad for you. You have to do the show notes now, because that was her job. But I love every other aspect of it. I love design, the creativity. I love all my interaction with listeners, whether it's through email, text, or like events I'm doing, like February 19th in South Florida. And I love meeting thought leaders and talking to them. And I'm sharing this with you because I literally just came out of a 1-hour interview with Elena Hicks, who's the Dean of Admissions at SMU, Southern Methodist University. And that interview, in my opinion, was fantastic. I thought she crushed it. I asked her some really hard questions, and she answered them extremely well. And I'm excited to bring that to you. So you won't hear that this Monday, but you will hear it the following Monday. It'll be a 3-parter, when a good solid hour. And I'm kind of just stoked in my enthusiasm. So I literally just ended that and came right in here to record episode 609 for you. So, but without any further ado, let's transition to my conversation with Kate and Hilary about parent college Facebook groups.
And now it's time for Hot Topics in the News.
I'm here with Kate and Hilary, the Colorado crew. Hi, Kate. Hi, Hilary.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Well, we're excited today. We're going to take on an article that I want to say one of our listeners sent this in. You know, you guys send us such great articles, and it's an important topic. And so the article is called College Parent Facebook Groups and When Helicopter Parenting Goes Too Far. It's by Rachel Hale. It's a USA Today article. And it's short enough that I'm just going to read it so that everybody understands the context. And then I'm going to just kind of let the two of you have a pretty free-flowing discussion. I'll chime in sometimes, but here we go. They've packed the car and moved their kids into their dorm. But some college parents aren't ready to let go. And Facebook is where it all plays out. One parent wanted to email their child's professors before the semester began to introduce themselves and open up a line of communication. Another questioned how to handle their daughter's boyfriend visiting her dorm and considered involving his parents. Others asked where they can check their child's grades. Across the country, thousands of parents are joining Facebook groups for their child's schools with names like Clemson University, Parents and Families, NYU, Class of 2026, Parents and Families. In an age where technology offers parents constant connection, the spaces are meant for advice. Most of the posts on these forums are asking for tutor recommendations, help finding a fall apartment lease, or advice on course selections. Others are easily Googleable but harmless questions asking when graduation is, if there are any printing services on campus, and if University Health Services will treat a sinus infection. But some of the requests go too far, says Julie Lithcott-Hames, former dean of freshmen at Stanford University and author of How to Raise an Adult. You're effectively occupying the student's lane and pushing your own student out of it, Lithcott-Hames says. Am I depriving them of having those very experiences because I'm so afraid that they are so incapable that I'm choosing to do it all for them? How Facebook's became a digital village for parents. It's the subtitle. For parents, especially those who didn't attend college themselves or are sending their kids to school far from home, these groups can be a lifesaver for troubleshooting advice on everything from apartment leases to packing lists. If they feel they're alone in something, they get a lot of commenting like, hey, I'm going through the same thing myself, says Tamara Wingeter, the moderator of Parent Class of 2025, Parenting Beyond the Nest group, which has nearly 154,000 members on Facebook. There's a lot of camaraderie for the parents. Some of these posts have drawn ire from other parents, spurred satire videos making fun of them with millions of views, and even spawned satirical groups making fun of the large campus ones. As a university employee, I cannot count the number of times parents insist on enabling their kids. One person commented on a TikTok, somehow college morphed from a place of independence into an extension of high school, said another. I would be mortified if my parent did this, a student said. Helena Newland, a May 2025 graduate of Michigan State University, says some of the posts in her school's parent Facebook group felt smothering. Overwhelmingly, students' views of these posts are negative. They find them embarrassing, intrusive, and ridiculous, Newland says. It's more lighthearted annoyance than genuine hatred, but not a positive view all the same. Subtitle, Where to Draw the Line on Overparenting. These Facebook posts are in line with what Lithcott-Hames views as a wider trend of overparenting. As a Stanford dean, Lithcott-Hames witnessed parents bypass their children to get involved in roommate disputes and to continue to review every piece of their child's homework. She says these behaviors start in childhood, monitoring every assignment in elementary school, yelling at referees on the sidelines of the neighborhood t-ball game, and resolving playground disputes. Add in that the rise of smartphones birthed GPS tracking and granted concerned parents access to 24/7 surveillance of their children. Psychologists have invented terms like bulldozer and snowplow. Parents to refer to these parents who go a step further than helicopter parents by actively removing any obstacles in their child's way. Subtitle, How to Help College-Age Kids Be Resilient. Once these behaviors are set in stone, they're harder to reduce in adulthood. A 2019 poll from the New York Times and research from Morning Consult found that 76% of parents from 18 to 28-year-olds have reminded their adult children of deadlines, including schoolwork deadlines, and 74% of parents made appointments for their children. Parents have completely missed that you grow as a person to be a safe and competent and confident adult by allowing them to try to do the things of life and learning the lessons that come, Lithcott-Hames says. Lithcott-Hames says parents should emphasize with their children's concerns, but keep their child in the driver's seat by asking them what their plan of action is to resolve the problem. They can help direct their kids toward the proper application or call center but they should resist the urge to do it for them. The parent's role is we love you, we believe in you, you can tell us anything, we are a sounding board, look what Hale says. If you want advice, we're happy to give it, but we're not going to impose our advice without you asking. We're not going to swoop in and solve it because we know you've got this. And Rachel Hale, so she kind of focuses on covering youth mental health at USA Today. So anyway, there's the article. Ladies, take it where you want to go.
Okay, I'm just going to start out with a huge caveat here. I have not had a child enter college yet. So I have not had those feelings and not had the temptation or had to even really grapple with it. So I interviewed some friends who one of each on the different side of the spectrum about these Facebook groups. And I, certainly have my own opinions.
You specifically said you wanted to speak to this topic. So do you see things, do you see things that as a CU Boulder, employee at all that give you any thoughts?
Yeah. So we do have beyond just the admissions, some parents are way too involved, but we do have an element of for current students where they might get a hold put on their account. And that means that they can't register for the next semester because maybe if they have a financial commitment or fine at a different university, or they haven't gotten us their final transcript. So just the other day, I was in the lobby when a parent came in to clear that hold on behalf of their child who's a current student at CU. And that does happen a decent amount every winter and spring. And it's hard to see that, to be honest, because that, they are now a fully functioning member of our student community. And I think they need to take care of that themselves.
So I'm really curious to hear Hillary's thoughts. She has had 2 students. Bryn's a graduate now, right? You're a parent of a current student. I feel like I have a very nuanced view. I think there's a lot of good things that happen in these groups. And I think a lot of the things that they included in the groups as examples, like parents finding out different things that are there as resources. So I personally don't have a negative view overall. I think it's bad when it's over the top. Those are my thoughts. But I kind of want to hear Hillary's thoughts.
Yeah, I am in something called the Standing Operational Group for Parent Experience at CC, which is a really interesting experience for me. There's someone from the parent and family office. There's someone from advising, somebody from housing, and from wellness. I think that's all of us. And the idea is for the person from parent and family to be able to kind of hear the ways that we're engaging with parents at CC so that they can try to kind of get out in front of whatever problems might be coming up. And so I have heard quite a few stories of parents trying to intervene for their students, sometimes with the advisors, like parents wanting to be on all of any Zoom call that a student would have with their academic advisor, which is kind of silly because you can just go in person, right? You don't need to be on Zoom, but the parents want to be involved. And so they want the meetings to be on Zoom, or parents trying to intervene in the housing process. And so one thing I would say is that we as colleges can do better in looping parents in ahead of time so that they don't feel anxious and not know what's going on. And we can sort of make our own jobs on the college side easier by letting parents know, for example, exactly what the housing process is, so that if they're the kind of parent who wants to check in with their kid and say, hey, did you complete the housing contract? I know that deadline is coming up, then the parent has a way to do that without feeling totally out of the loop. And I sort of selfishly on the college side, that makes our job a lot easier because it's much easier for us to smooth out the road for parents than it is for us to change parent behavior. The other side of it is that I know our kids learn best by making their own mistakes. And in retrospect, thinking about Bryn's journey at Wellesley, there were times when I probably could have been more involved because she didn't know what she didn't know.
Mhm.
And I think that there were times when that had sort of a negative effect on her academic path. And then there were also times when I could see that we could have stepped back. And part of the nice thing about having your kid go to college on the other side of the country is that you are automatically removed in many ways from what they're doing, but that doesn't mean that you can't like look at them on Find My iPhone and see where they are. And so I think that there are definitely ways where we can be sort of over involved, and it's to our own detriment as parents and also to our kids' detriment. And then there are times when it makes sense. Like it's okay to sit down. Like we have, maybe once a month we kind of sit down with Callie and just say, "Hey, tell us what's going on. Like what are you working on for internship applications? What are you working on for like, registering for classes next semester?" Those kinds of things. I like to be kept up to date on those. I like to be able to have the opportunity to engage with her on those things. Um, and it's nice to be able to do it in sort of a hands-off way, rather than like trying to control what she's doing. I'll say one other thing. I was talking with a colleague today who's working with a student who has a real sense of imposter syndrome right now. And part of it is because he didn't complete his college applications on his own, right? He had a lot of help with them. And now he's feeling like maybe I don't belong here because that wasn't really all my writing. And I didn't do it myself. And I'm not sure that I should be here because it wasn't really my own work. And I think that's another reason why it's nice to let students kind of walk their own road so that once they get to a place, they know, like, I did this on my own. That's a thing you can really be proud of, I think.
Yeah, I have three comments. I'll just throw them out there and then see what you guys think. So the first comment, I have is one thing I did not agree with in the article is it pointed out it felt like it was using this as an example of parents overstepping, that parents want to see their kids' grades. And I'm sorry, but I think when you're paying the kind of money you're paying for college, you have a right to see your students' grades to see if they're even being responsible. I don't think that's overstepping, so that's one comment that I had. Another comment I had is a lot of this feels like it has gotten worse. When I say it, antecedent I'm referring to is excessive parent involvement since COVID. Because one thing I've been networking with a bunch of counselors on the topic of parents that feel as if they need to be in every single counseling session you do with their student. I'm probably more lenient than some counselors in terms of allowing parents to be at a lot of the meetings and supporting that and even encouraging it. But I do not like it when a parent feels the need to be in every single counseling session. And I will speak to them when I have a standard line. I'm like, you're not going to be a Siamese twin when your kid goes off to college. Part of this process is building some independence and building that independent muscle, so that they don't feel they need to look to you all the time. And there is a rise of that within the counseling profession. As I network with other counselors, they will say that, yes. And a lot of them think it has to do with COVID, which would make some sense because if you're at home and you're doing all these things, you're kind of getting in the pattern of more intervention. I realize not every single parent's at home with their kid, but some higher percentage are. So, so that was the second thought. And then the third thought, and I know these are completely different thoughts, but I'm just getting them out there. I'm finding myself confused at where to draw the line and what's appropriate and what's not. And I'll tell you a conversation I had this year with a client I'm working with. So this is a client from the Midwest, and I just worked with the one student. I didn't work with the older sibling. But the mom is really letting this student drive this process. Like she's doing everything. And the student is stepping up to the plate and handling it. So I just complimented the mom on how she's giving her student such a gift of cultivating her independence. And I'm telling you, your daughter is crushing it. So then the mom says to me, that's great. But for the older sibling who had pretty severe ADD, ADHD, was the kind of student people said you shouldn't go to college. And I never believed that. I was intervening all the time, or they would not have made it if I didn't intervene. And then the mom said, you should see how independent they are and how they're thriving now. Now the student is out in the workforce, and they would not have, made it. And some of the things, quite honestly, she told me that she did, I was uncomfortable with. But it did made me think, like, maybe in my mind, I need to make even more of an adjustment for what's permissible if you have a certain kind of kid with, it's just not going to do it without you. And they are like, we want them to learn by failing, but we also don't want them to crash and burn. And so it kind of made it really hard for me to sort of figure out where's the line of inappropriateness for someone who isn't going to handle that responsibility well. Like we say, let our kids fail and they learn by failing, but we want those failures to be, more like a bruised skin knee, not crashing and burning in the car accident. So those are all my thoughts. And I just kind of want to see what you ladies think about any of the things that I said. So I brought up the COVID point. I brought up the point about, I don't think it's inappropriate for a parent to see kids' grades. And then I brought up the point that I'm convinced that more intervention is warranted for certain kids, but
and for certain things, right?
And for certain, yes. But where you draw the line is hard for me.
Yeah, it depends on the kid and the thing. And I think ideally we would be letting them fail early, right? Mm-hmm. When they're 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, because those small failures at the beginning teach them how to be independent and how to make good choices later on. It's a little bit hard if that ship has sailed. Like, I think it was, Kate, did you do Love and Logic parenting? Does that sound familiar to you?
It does.
I mean, I remember from the toddler years, like listening to all these books on tape about parenting with Love and Logic. I remember when my kids were toddlers listening to all these books on tape from the library called Parenting with Love and Logic. And it was about like letting your kids have choices so that they learned how to make choices. And the choices you gave them were ones that were all acceptable to you, but also letting them make mistakes and letting them fail early because it's so much easier than failing later. And if you haven't already gotten to that habit, like you might end up being one of those parents who has a 27-year-old and you're still reminding them about deadlines and making appointments. So, I mean, one thing that I would say to listeners out there is if your kids are young, like now's the time to have them start calling the orthodontist to make their own appointments and letting them not turn in a few assignments here and there if they can then suffer the sort of natural consequences of that. And if it brings down their grades a little bit, it brings down their grades, but it's not going to be the end of the world for them. And it's going to make your life a lot easier once they're sort of grown, so that you're not having to hang over them all the time. But I do think each kid is so different and each situation is different. And that's something that as a parent, you have to kind of use your best judgment on.
Yeah, I also think sometimes parents don't realize how much they can stifle their student's voice without knowing it. And I'll tell you something that comes up a fair amount for me in the counseling room. I'll have a parent, especially when a student's new, and the way our system's set up, we have about 6 onboarding meetings where we want parents there when you're starting with us, so that they should be there. But I'll start out with a student, and the student is really taciturn. I mean, you're not getting anything out of them. And the parent almost starts like apologizing, like, I'm so sorry. They're not saying anything. I'm really sorry about that. And what I always say to them is, they're very different when you're not here, like the parent is like really concerned about their kid, but they don't realize a lot of times that their presence is so overpowering that the kid just feels stifled, and I'm not talking about in any kind of way where like the kid has a bad relationship with Karen. It's nothing like that. It's just, kids can really come alive sometimes when they're outside of their shadow. In fact, when I was at Westtown, Hiller, we started going to separating students from parents on tour. It's a lot more. Yeah, it's a lot more work to manage. We needed 90 tour guides, but the kid is a different kid when their parent's not there. Is that why you do it?
Yeah, we do it because we want students to be able to ask the questions that they want to ask without their parents influencing them, and for parents to be able to ask the kinds of questions that make our kids roll their eyes, right? I mean, it's just, I remember when my kids visited CC, both of them hated that they were separated from us on the tour. They're very independent people. Sure. I don't really know why it made them so uncomfortable. But I I see the value in it. And I just think that kids are able to be more themselves and ask the questions that they need answers to about the college if their parents aren't there listening to them. So yeah, I think, gosh, I mean, we've been doing separate tours for parents and students for a long time here at CC, and it seems to work well for us.
I saw great value in it as well for the exact reasons that you said. I mean, and I'm not on the tour, but it was feedback that I would get from, I did manage that program for a while. And the feedback that you got was very different from students when their parents weren't there. Sometimes I'm in the counseling room and I'll ask a student a question. And this is particularly times when if it's a parent that's almost in all the counseling sessions. And I'll ask a student a question and they'll turn to their parents almost like like, is my answer okay? Like seeking approval. But it's just very, very, very hard, And I think of, Lisa has said this on the podcast before. Jen, who I work with, has said this multiple times. They each had one student who didn't function as independently as some of the others. And if they didn't do certain things for that one student, that student was probably going to crash. So I know even in my own family, like, Joy is the kid who since second grade, nobody had to ever tell her to do the homework. And if you were telling her to do her homework, you're going to get the stinky eye, as they say, right? Like, because she's like, I've got this. Why are you treating me like I'm a 2-year-old? And that's kind of who I was too. So I have to be careful with that because that's how I think. And I realize not everybody's that way. Karis, she was going to do everything on the last minute. She's probably going to do it, but she's going to do it the last minute. And sometimes when you wait until the very last minute, every once in a while, assignment doesn't make it. So those two had to be managed a little differently. Friends, this concludes part 1 of 2. And you're going to hear part 2 next Thursday. But before you do that, we're doing something a little creative this week. Jennifer Mandel from Milwaukee, who's a college coach with me at School Match for You. Jen will be sharing her experience with Facebook groups on Monday's episode. And then you'll hear the final part next Thursday of my discussion with Kate and Hillary. Let's transition now to the final part 2 of 2 of my discussion with Lynda and Lisa about their new book, The Calm College Method.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
Friends, we've reached the final part of Lynda and Lisa's interview on their book they jointly wrote called The Calm College Method. And in part 2, Lynda explains who the book is good for. And then Lisa and I talk about the practicality of the book, and I share some of the audiences that I feel will be great for this book. Lisa talks about the structure of the book and how the book really answers the questions people have through checklists and worksheets. Lisa and Lynda talk about their chapter in the book on AI and college admissions. Lisa explains what a successful college search looks like, and she shares the single most important thing when working with a student. Then Lisa and Lynda share what they feel is the number one takeaway from the book, and I share my number one takeaway from the book. Lisa talks about one thing that families can do to reduce student stress. And Lisa and I talk about 3 ways listeners can get the book. Listen and enjoy. Let's talk about who the book is good for, because I had a lot of thoughts on that. I wonder what you're thinking over there. Who do you think, I mean, there's a sense in which everybody could benefit from this book, right? Anybody interested in the college admission space. But when I was reading it, I definitely had some audiences in mind that I thought would be really good for. What are your thinking? What's your thinking on that?
Well, I think you took the words right out of our mouth. It's good for everyone, right?
All people should buy the book, really.
But it really is something that could benefit anybody. I really do mean that. You guys know I don't say things I don't believe. But I think there's some people in particular I think they could really benefit. Just my thoughts.
Well, I think that, reading it, we want people to think about school probably earlier than they would like to. So you get to know the pitfalls, those common pitfalls. So, and I don't mean, starting college tours in 8th grade or something like that. But for families, I think kind of absorbing this information earlier is better. And then families who are really trying to avoid, it's out there. You're saying, like, where do students get this competitiveness when their parents don't have it? And it's from Instagram and TikTok and, school. So families who are trying to avoid the chaos that they see on social media, I mean, I read all of those Facebook groups, and it's heartbreaking, some of the things. And I just want to say, ooh, this could have been avoided. So I think families who are really trying to avoid being the cautionary tale on social media would do this. But we also believe in meeting students and families where they're at. So if you have a senior and you're still thinking of applying to school, there's information in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I realized after we finished the book that we did not mention college counseling, independent college counseling, once in the book, because it's really designed as almost like a DIY guide for families. And so people who, are not interested in college counseling or can't afford it, it gives them, I think, a pretty good framework with which to manage the process themselves, which was really important to us in terms of providing that access, like YCBK does, to, give college knowledge to all, and just giving them something really tangible and practical that they could use to manage their kids' application process without a college counselor.
No, I think it was really smart that you did that. This is not a big sales pitch type book at all. It's not even, that's not even in there. I think, Lynda, your point of starting early is a good one, because you're really not talking so much about starting the college process early. You're really talking about thinking about your life, right? You're really talking about thinking about your life, and people should be not just starting to think about their life and big themes at 17. So I think that made sense. And I totally agree with Lisa. This is a DIY guide. Like, I think when I read it, I felt like, okay, if you're a do-it-yourselfer, you really need to have this book. Then I thought, if you're in a public school and there's big ratios, 200, 300 to 1, you're not getting like individual professional counseling, this is going to be really good. But it also would be really, really good if you're in an environment where you're hearing over and over and over again that I need to go T20 or I'm not successful. It would be a really good combatant to that as well. So those were like some of the things I thought. We should probably talk a little bit about the structure, because, we've been talking in terms of like broad themes. But the one thing that you really do in this book is you really do lay out for someone who wants to be a DIYer, like what they need to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when it comes to like researching colleges, building a list, essays, timelines.
Yeah.
And we have, who I think would be amazing for the homeschool community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any thoughts on anything I've said?
Absolutely. I agree with everything that you said, which is, not always the case with me. But it is
I'm
today, and I love that
part and cutting that. That's the whole podcast. Just play that segment. Sorry, guys. 15-second podcast today.
Yeah, just over and over and over. Lisa and I agree.
Put on the loop.
Yeah, we really wanted to give people like actual, like, here's a checklist of things that you can do. Because, I love me a checklist. But checklists are also proven to be the most effective way of managing any process. So we have checklists for every year. Do this, do this, do this. We also have worksheets that will help you figure out how to research a school. They'll figure out how to deal with the financial aid issue. And these worksheets, I think, are another way for families who are trying to do it themselves to structure their efforts. And we wanted to be very intentional about providing that to families.
Yeah, and the other thing that's good, and of course this is sort of just inevitable, the fact that it's 2026, is it's current, right? Because in some ways this reminded me of the book, is it called College Conversations, written by the former dean from Penn, Eric Furta. I've had him on the podcast. The College Conversation is the name of the book, written by Eric Furta and John Steinberg, and it's a practical companion for parents. His book is a little bit of a DIYer, like here's what families need to do. But the one thing that's nice is because it's so current, like you even have sections in there about like proper use of AI, improper use of AI, how to use AI well, how not to use it. And I think that's one thing that is just different than kind of what's out there because that's such a current thing. Like,
Yeah,
I
that's
wrote
just
my
like
book in
happened in
2016 or
2025.
17. I
Yeah.
didn't even know if you told me AI, I would think you're talking about steak sauce
Mm-hmm.
or something.
Yeah, and the AI thing was kind of just kind of I think as the year evolved and we saw how much AI was being used, it was like we don't even mention this in this book and that we can't do that. So we went back and created an AI chapter and just even the act of making the chapter was incredibly enlightening to me. We ran a case study of college search and trying to find a list for a student whom we all might recognize. And so with that and just seeing the differences and how the different AIs responded, the different informations they gave, the level of detail, it was really interesting to see that.
There's certainly a lot of tools out there. So to see in print what it can and maybe can't do was really enlightening.
So what does a successful college search process look like in your opinions? And I can see a family thinking that. I wonder what their thoughts are on this. How would you
For
describe
me,
that?
and I think I can probably speak for Lynda too. So you got
Mm-hmm.
the end goal. You got multiple acceptances to schools you love, like you're like it's a plethora of choices. You can afford them. Your family is not going to be in that situation of like junior got into this school. Oops, we don't have the money for it. But the most important thing to me is that students feel better about themselves for having gone through this process. They feel more confident. They have more self-knowledge than when they started. And I mean, that is like, to me, that's like Christmas morning when I see a student do that. That is the ultimate reward for me, is to see that growth in a student that they've had throughout the process.
It reminds me, every now and then somebody will say to me, how do you define success? And I say, well, for me, it's three things. I want the student to feel really good about the process. I want the parent to feel really good about the process. And I want to feel really good about having worked with the family. And I said, this is not a case where two out of three ain't bad. No, I want to go. If it's not 3 for 3, it's not a success. So did everybody kind of feel good? But that's kind of the application of that applied to the college process. And it's not defined by, did I get in XYZ school? Because XYZ school may not be good for you.
Yeah. And you can't control that anyway.
Correct.
I mean,
both things,
who knows
both
what's
things.
going on with schools X, Y, or Z that year and what they're looking for and whether you're it or you're not.
No, that's a really good point. Probably even more important than what I said. Yeah. Not only may it not be good for you, you can't control that. So why would you make that the ultimate evaluation? So I know the answer to this because I read your book, but if parents are listening today, what's the one thing you want them to remember? If there's like one takeaway.
Well, for me, you just kind of talked about it because I really see the college admissions process as it should be exciting. The whole thing, you should be learning about yourself. You should be stretching your goals beyond, what you thought you might like to, where you might like to go back in, 6th grade, or where your best friend's brother goes to school. I think it should be a journey of self-discovery. And I love it when students are, through their research, discover, I didn't even know this was a possible major. This is what I want to study at this school that was nowhere on my radar. I think that is what it should be about, is that journey of self-discovery.
You had this thing at the very end, and I thought it was just an encapsulation of everything. I'm gonna read it. Look at this. I took a picture so it could be in my photos, so that I can go back and look at it.
That's so sweet.
No, I did. So I'm gonna read it because I really felt like it distilled the whole book into one sentence. It says this: the calm college method in one sentence. Focus on process you can control, not outcomes you cannot. And I think that like runs throughout the whole book. But what I like is you don't just say it, you really give people tools. If you just said that, okay, thanks, see ya,
Right.
have a nice life,
Mhm.
but like when you really get into the mechanics, okay, what does that look like in terms of what does a middle schooler do? What does a 9th or 10th grader do? And I think that's what makes it tangible. And so, all right. So in winding down, anything we haven't said that, you feel is important to say?
I feel like we've covered a lot. What I would also say is, like, if there's two things that parents get from the book, the other one is your list. The list is your
Yes.
savior. If you
Yeah.
have a good list that is
Yeah.
balanced, that is full of good fits that you can afford, and that your kid, would be happy to go to, like, pretty much all the schools on the list, like, that is going to save you so much stress. And so that's, if you had to do one thing in this process, you took one thing from the book, it would be creating the list and creating it in a really thoughtful, well-researched, and balanced way.
I'm really glad that you said that, because that is the key. All the problems start with the wrong list. I've said this before in the podcast, but I can think of kids that I've worked with that if you were to look at their profile, you would think it was ridiculous. The rigor, the grades, the extracurriculars, all of that. And then that kid is leaving feeling beaten down and not feeling successful, and the parents feeling beaten down. And then I can have a kid over here that has a 2.6 or 2.7 GPA, has struggled in school, and they're coming away saying, it just feels so great getting all this validation, and like the whole difference was, like, one student had an appropriate list and the other focused only on schools that nobody can expect to get into. And that does also, the prestige does come into play there too, because sometimes when a family has such a top heavy list, they only want to put schools on the list that are going to, like, really impress people. And I have to tell people all the time, like by nature, when you put, like, likelies and probables on your list, they're going to have a higher percentage chance of you getting in. And they're not the name at the cocktail party that is going to wow everybody. Like, by nature, you have to accept the fact that not every single school on your list is going to be a sizzle school. And believing that there's excellence in schools that aren't all the wow schools. Sometimes families really struggle with that. They'll reach out, they'll hire us, and they'll be like, I have no problem finding reach and stretch schools, but boy, I can't find others. And because at the heart, I'm trying to impress somebody with the name. So yeah, good. Let's close on that. So this is great. And I have an exciting announcement. So I've been sussing us out and teasing this out for a while, that we have 3 new editions of books that we're going to be giving away when you send in a question for a listener. And so we've got a homeschooling book, and we've got the book, now you've heard me interview Peter Pitts in his Small College Magic book. And Lisa and Lynda are making their book available either by paperback or Kindle. And so you're going to hear a brand new recording on the choices of your books. And so if you're interested in getting the book for sending in a question from a listener, will be one of the choices that you have. But maybe you don't send in a question, or you don't want to wait that long. How can people get the book?
Well, mainly I think through Amazon, although it is on Barnes & Noble and a bunch of other platforms as well. And on Amazon, I think this is still true right now. It's if you have Kindle Unlimited, which is like if you have Prime, Amazon Prime, you can read it for free.
It's free. It's free right now.
And then, and then also you can get, a Kindle version that you own, or you can order the paperback. The paperback is beautiful, folks. It's a very good looking book. But that shouldn't really influence your choice. I was just really happy how it came out. And so, those are the 3 ways. There's, if you are interested in writing a review of the book. And if you contact me, I can send you links to a website where you can read the book for free. The expectation, they don't like hunt you down or anything, is that you leave some kind of review, an honest review. And that helps, with the Amazon algorithm, the more reviews you get, like the more visibility you get. So, that would be great if you want to do that. But if not, that's totally cool. Buying the book is A-OK as well.
And now I'm challenging Lisa and Lynda to do the audible version.
Yeah, that's like, that might be the 2026 project, but we have to figure out how to do that, because I think it probably should have our voices on it and not like hiring a person, but then we have to go to a studio and I don't know. We're still kind of financially recovering from the, money pit of publishing the book.
So I have some tips. We can talk offline. I have some tips I can help you with on that.
All right.
Yeah, you can do it for $50. You'd be surprised.
Oh my.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Excited to have this, and thanks for putting in all the sweat equity to produce this. And just so you know, like before Lisa and Lynda put the book out, they kind of tested it. Like they did the workshop before counselors. They've done some other things as well and gathered feedback and took that feedback into consideration. So yeah, I'm really proud of you guys, and keep up the good work, and let's spread the word, because all you're doing is really helping kids, and it's all about helping kids.
Well, thank you. And thanks for the idea and the inspiration, Mark.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Friends, over the years, quite a few podcast listeners have reached out to me and asked me if I could be a speaker for various groups. Jack and Jill has been a common one, and also just a lot of school-based groups like back to school nights and college workshop nights at local PTAs. And it shouldn't be surprising that a lot of our listeners are in leadership roles in organizations like this. Well, friends, if you're in a leadership position at a school or an organization, and you're looking for a good topic related to college, I encourage you to reach out to Lisa or Lynda about having them do a Zoom presentation or a Q&A session to go over the content that they cover in the Comp College method. I feel very confident that the members in your group will find great value in what they will share. All right, friends, let's transition to the final part of my interview with Susan Brisson, Director of Admission at Olin College of Engineering in Needham, Massachusetts.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
Friends, hopefully you're enjoying this interview with Susan Brisson, Director of Admission at Olin College of Engineering. You've reached part 3, which is our final part. In part 3, Susan tells us how demanding is Olin in terms of rigor and intensity. Susan tells us the role college major plays in their admission process, and she tells us what some of the main majors are at Olin. Susan explains why they are so confident that they are going to remain test optional in perpetuity. Susan shares how Olin looks at AP test scores in their academic evaluation. Susan explains how they look at students who come in with design or engineering experience. Is that something they expect, require, don't require? What role does that play in the evaluation? And Susan discusses study abroad, research opportunities, and scholarships at Olin. Listen and enjoy.
So students are experienced in sort of teaching themselves. And I think that really serves them well in the job in the marketplace as well. You get to a job and somebody's not going to hold your hand and walk you through everything you need to know. You have to have a certain ability to think on your feet, understand what you know and what you don't know. And if you don't know something, find it out. And our students are really, really good at that.
So some of the top engineering schools, some of them we've mentioned, some we haven't. I'm thinking of places like MIT, Carnegie Mellon. I'll throw Hopkins in there. Certainly Caltech, Georgia Tech. They have reputations for being very intense. In fact, we've had many of them on the podcast. If not, I've talked to them, and they'll admit it that they're very intense. So how would you describe Olin when it comes to sort of the intensity of the place?
That's a great question. It's demanding. There's no question. But it's a different kind of intensity. It's not sort of an external force that's put upon the students. More so, it is a student desire to do well. It's a student desire to contribute and be active and do a lot in the classroom, but also in an extracurricular space. I think, the end of the semester is busy no matter where you go. But I think in generally speaking, not a lot of final exams. Students are getting ready to do a presentation or have a final project to do, but it's a different kind of intensity. And I think that students, again, if you think about a final exam, you write your answers down and then you hand it over to someone and then you get the outcome. In a presentation situation, it's a dialogue, right? You're presenting your results and somebody's asking you a question and you're able to say, oh, actually, let me clarify that for you, or let me add this additional perspective here, or that's something that we thought about, but we discarded it for this reason. So that level of that kind of interactive assessment, I think it's a different kind of preparation, and it is stressful. I would never say it's not stressful, but it's not the same kind of thing. Students also, and this is significant, are very caring and compassionate of one another. There's wonderful peer-to-peer support. This is not a competitive environment where somebody is going to not help you because that's going to impact their grade and it's going to wreck the curve, and I don't want to do that. So again, that collaborative nature that is wrought in that first year experience particularly plays out in lots of different ways on campus, and students do support one another tremendously.
I've noticed that with all of the schools that really emphasize project-based, team-based, it seems to be collaboration seems to be part of the culture.
For sure.
For that, genre of engineering-focused schools.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So let's talk about majors. Like, which ones do you offer, and what role, if any, does major play in your admission process?
Sure. Well, the short answer is it plays no role in our admission process. Everybody's admitted regardless of what they want to major in. And that no one declares a major. I mean, they can write it on the Common App. I think I want to major in mechanical engineering, or lots of times in their essay, they'll write about, these are the things I'm interested in, and I think maybe I would major in X, but it's not a condition or a part of our decision-making process. So we have majors in electrical and computer engineering. We have mechanical engineering. And then we have a kind of a general engineering major. And within that, students would select a concentration. And so we have sustainability as a concentration, robotics, design, computing, which is kind of like our software major, if you will. I'm forgetting one off the top of my head. And then there's also this self-design concentration option. So students can, provided that there's faculty depth in that area, put together their own concentration, working with their advisor to kind of map out a course plan. And so long as it's an area where we have some faculty depth and expertise, that's something that they can do as well.
I'm curious about your being test optional, because a lot of the schools as selective as you have gone back to testing. Yep. What is it that gives you the confidence that you can admit a student without requiring testing?
I'm so glad you asked that. I think a couple of things. I think practically speaking, we're a small place. And while we're selective, we just don't get the same number of applications that a place like Dartmouth or MIT does. And so they need a filter, right? They need something that they can look at and to just sort of manage that volume of applications. That's not our situation. I'd also kind of revert to what I said previously. We don't have a lot of high stakes testing in our curriculum. Students don't take a lot of tests once they get here. So their performance on a high stakes test is not necessarily predictive. I think for some students who have good scores and they want to submit them, again, that's great. That gives us sort of one other data point that says, oh yeah, this kid's really well prepared academically. There are so many inherent biases built into the testing. I think we all know that. So there are kids who present equally strong high school transcripts who maybe don't have those same test results. And they'll be hamstrung potentially because of that. And so we feel that, again, for us, having that strong record in high school, having had a rigorous high school program, having good success in that academically, being able to maintain other engagement in the world, whether it's in the school or your community or your home life or your job or whatever it is, you'll be able to balance your time. You're able to, kind of still answer your emails and all those things, all that. Those are the best predictors of success for us, I think. I should point out that this is, we became test optional during the pandemic, like so many places. We've extended that policy another year. And, we're in the process of gathering more data to support that decision. But I think at this point, we've been able to admit really strong classes over the past years without the test results in every case. And it's been fine. It's been fine for us.
Do you find AP scores also give you a data point if you have
Yep.
them? Talk about AP scores and what you glean from them, or if you see really high ones or low ones or whatever.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that sometimes it's really helpful if a student, student has a challenging semester, home life problems, or whatever it might be, and their grades a little bit tank, but they've got a good test score, in their BC Calc or whatever, that definitely gives us confidence that they've mastered the content. They know what they're doing. I think sometimes it can also, if we're looking at a student who's had kind of more of a middling academic experience, or we're not sure kind of like not how seriously, that's not what I mean to say, but, I think sometimes that can also confirm, kind of a lesser grade, if you will, and that, that 3 is kind of makes sense in that, we do have students who've gotten really strong grades and they, for whatever reason, the day of the test is not in their favor and that doesn't work out well. And I think we're always eager to look, again, closer to that high school transcript because that's the product of weeks of study and lots of different, data points rather than that one singular one. We don't offer credit for AP test scores. We don't offer any sort of advanced credit because we have that unified first year curriculum. Nobody's placing out. There's nothing to place out of. So I always tell students that if they don't want to submit their AP scores, they can self-report them and that's fine, but they don't have to submit anything official because we're not going to be using them for credit.
Susan, a few years ago, I had a student who was, really high grades, really good curriculum. I don't remember if they were 4.0, but they were very close to 4.0 if they weren't, with really good curriculum and, high testing. I don't remember exactly, but it would have been maybe like 15, 20-ish or something like that.
Wow.
And they had 10 5s on APs,
Wow.
And they were dying to go to Olin, but they weren't admitted. And
wow.
I wonder, like, how many kids do you have like that with those kinds of profiles dying to go to Olin, but the space is just so limited that, we see that all day, every day. So that's what the applicant pool kind of looks like. And
yeah, the applicant pool is insanely strong. It's different every year, of course.
Sure,
it varies all the time. But it is an incredibly strong applicant pool. And again, like usually, 60 to 70% of them are academically qualified. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing the bulk of the pool really strong, presenting very strong academic credentials. And so then it does come into that conversation about fit, which is a word that I really hate because it's so fraught, but also affinity for Olin. We have so few spots. We want to give them away to people who we think really want to come.
Right.
Because if you want to be someplace, then you're going to be a contributor. Then you're going to be happy. Then you're going to be invested. And so, it happens. It definitely happens. It's happened more than once. I've been on the phone more than once with a disappointed student or often a disappointed parent who's saying the same thing. My kid had all the ACAT credentials in the world, but still wasn't admitted. And, there's no clear answer. I can't point to one thing that says, oh,
that's
you didn't
true for
have
every
this.
very selective
That's
school.
true. Right. Exactly. But I do think it is a very strong pool academically and personally as well. They're really impressive individuals doing really interesting things in their school, in their community, in their church or kind of whatever it is.
How much do you look for sort of like evidence of like engineering accomplishments or, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Either project-based stuff that they've done or, just summer programs or clubs or just like that track record of demonstrated commitment to engineering.
Yep. That some of that, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you have to consider the whole student and what's been
Sure.
available to them and what their opportunities have been. I mean, if you're looking at a kid who, is working all summer long at Burger King, then they're not going to have the opportunity to go to, to an engineering camp. I think it varies. Again, I'm not evading your question, but it's such a small pool and the process is really personal. So we're able to look at what each individual kind of is presenting and lots of times having that hands-on experience can be in the engineering realm. It can also be in an artistic or design realm. We've got students who are blacksmiths, students who are interested in kind of like fiber arts and costuming and cosplay and, things like that. And those are all the same kinds of mindsets, really, that creative, that building, that, addressing something, fixing something, making something work. But the medium is different.
Mm-hmm. Talk about study abroad, because I know that's something you wanted to talk about. So how
Sure,
does that
yeah.
fit into an Olin curriculum,
Absolutely. So I guess, usually it's like 50% of and it's usually junior year. It's not limited to junior year, but that's kind of when it tends to happen. It kind of fits in the curriculum well. We have many, many study abroad programs that are pre-approved. Students can go. It's easy. Their credits are going to transfer. Their financial aid, if it's a situation for them, will transfer. And what we often see are students who are kind of saving up some of those arts and humanities requirements and using them in a study abroad experience and doing something completely different that's not technical. When Olin was founded, one of the founding precepts was this global view, this broad world view that we felt was essential to engineering education. And study abroad is one of the ways that students can do that. And we do call it study away because sometimes students will elect to study at a different domestic institution. But it's something that we encourage and we try to make, again, really easy for students to do and then still be able to graduate in 4 years. That's always the big question.
Talk about research opportunities with faculty members.
Sure. Again, small faculty, about 40 full-time faculty. Everybody does research and everybody needs students to help them. So faculty research interests will evolve over time. It's very easy for students to get involved in faculty research if they want to. The faculty will, in the semester, oftentimes in the fall semester, do like a little research fair where they can talk about their research interests, and students have an opportunity to learn about them in that context. But also, students are encouraged to reach out to faculty and read about their research interests and ask if they can participate. And it's a low lift. I mean, again, no grad students here, so there's no competition for those spots. Students can do research over the summer. They paid positions, live on the campus. So that's a nice opportunity for some students. Students can also do research during the academic year, which might be a paid position or it might be a credit bearing opportunity. So, and again, it's like that student faculty interaction is really, again, another hallmark of the experience here at Olin. Students work closely with their faculty in all different ways, and research is just one of them.
Yeah, no, that's great. Talk about scholarships, because you guys have both merit and need-based.
We do.
Am I correct on that? Yeah.
You are correct. Every student who's admitted receives a minimum $10,000 scholarship per year for 4 years. There are some additional merit scholarships available, and everybody is considered for them as part of the review process. So there's no separate application process for that. And then we also have need-based financial aid for U.S. citizens and permanent residents. We are able to meet full demonstrated need. We use the FAFSA. FAFSA deadline is January 15th. So it's a very straightforward process. It's pretty clean in that way.
Well, Susan, we're about to transition to our lightning round, our lighthearted round. But before we do, is there anything we haven't said about Olin that, you just would want our listeners to know?
Sure. Yeah. I would say, no, I think this has covered a lot of it. The only thing I just want to say is that we really understand that there's a lot of the only way you learn about something is by educating yourself and by asking the questions, coming to visit if you can. We do a lot of virtual programming to make it more accessible to students. I know from my own experience as a parent, hard to get kids sometimes to get in the car and come with you and take a look. But we really love to have people come and visit us. And we're all available for questions. If anyone wants to send us an email, we're happy to jump on a call and help people understand Olin because, we want to make sure you have the information that you need.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about the smaller schools. You can really get to know your applicants and really go to a greater length to see if it, to see if it really feels like a match and a fit like that, which is really nice. All right. First question. What's your first memory?
My first memory is when I was a little girl sitting on the kitchen counter with my mother talking to me, and I am talking to my imaginary friends that lived in a little cubby hole behind the kitchen cabinet.
I have two first memories. One of them, because I was very active as a kid, and I remember running, and I ran right through this glass door.
Oh, no.
I still have a cut on my knee from it, but I remember everybody was so concerned. I was just flying, and to me, it just looked like an open space. Wow. And then we had this giant, I guess there's like a fish pond in the front of our yard. And my brother, who's a year and a half younger, he fell in.
Oh,
and so
no.
I remember,
oh, my God.
I remember my parents just jiving in, all concerned that our kid drowned. It's all good. Yeah.
Oh, God.
What's the last TV show you binge watched?
Oh, wow. I think it's on Apple TV, and I can't binge watch the whole thing. It's called Up Cemetery Road. It's based on a novel by Mick Herron. It's that or it's Great British Bake Show. So it's like the cozy baking or like the mysteries. So those are my two favorite things.
So there's a few of those out there, but my daughter was on like that. Is that the Great American Baking Show? For the guy who gives the handshake
Yep.
to, my
Yes,
oldest
exactly.
daughter,
That's
my 29-year-old was on that show.
Get out of here. No way.
Yeah,
oh my
She had to
gosh.
go to Los Angeles to win a baking contest, which she did. And then she had like 6 weeks in England, which was, it's an experience
That's amazing.
you'll never
gosh.
I mean, she didn't win, but she also wasn't one of the first couple kicked off. But now there's a whole community of all of them. And they get together at least once a year.
Oh
and do
my
it,
gosh.
do it.
That
and
is
she helped the winner
amazing.
with his cookbook in Chicago. It's pretty cool how it's become
That's
a
very
community.
cool.
So
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's not even her thing. That's like her side hustle. But hey, good for her.
Good for her.
Yeah. What do you wish your 18-year-old self knew?
That everything is not so dire. That you can make mistakes and it's okay. You don't have to be perfect. I think that's typical of lots of women my age. But don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all really small stuff.
Yes, you think it's big, but in the big perspective, it's small.
Really not. It's really not. Yeah.
Do you have a movie recommendation and a book recommendation for us?
So sure. So actually, I'm in a book club, and we're reading a book called The Correspondent by I think it's Virginia Evans. And it is an epistolary novel, which of course is a novel that is a series of letters, and you learn about the main character through letter writing. And I am really interested in books about, sort of people who are, I don't want to say in the margins, but, there's not a lot written about elderly people. And I like having just recently shepherded my parents through, a very protracted kind of end of their experience on Earth. I really interested in aging and how that impacts people. So it's a great book. It's actually it's really wonderful. And then movie. I don't know. I'm not a big movie person.
Oh, you and me. I feel like I'm the only one. Our listeners mock me.
Yeah, no, I'm not. And I'm trying to think. I guess like maybe the Downton Abbey movie #3 I haven't seen that. Maybe I'll watch that. I don't know.
Never heard of it.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't like movies. It's just hard because I'm so busy to carve out that much time.
Yeah.
I find.
Same. Yeah. Definitely.
Oh, good.
Definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. So what is your advice for our listeners? And our listeners are mostly parents. We just completed our recent survey. I think I might have sent it to you. About
Yep,
12%
you
are
did.
college counselors. About 12% are college counselors, and then students. So parents, listeners, parents, college counselors, students. What would be your advice?
So my best advice is to try to find that balance between letting students lead the process and giving them some guardrails. I think that students, and it's interesting, my kids are all grown up. They're all, college grads. They're all, off in their own lives. And I see students coming through now who have never really made a phone call. They have not, they haven't solicited somebody, asked a question. I would say my best advice to parents is allow your children. It's not that they get to make all the decisions, but let them make the phone calls. Let them initiate the outreach. They need to practice that. And so I would say that is a really big piece of advice. And even though you want to protect your child and help them and support them, don't tell me they're too busy to write their own email. I'm sorry. That is something I think that does them such a disservice.
Well, that's great.
And I think all questions are valid. So ask a lot of them and ask them over and over again. And, people need a lot of information. This is a big decision. And people need a lot of information. So don't be afraid to ask for that.
Susan, this has been great. Can you share Olin's website and your contact information if anybody does have an email and they want to reach out to you with a question based on something they've heard?
Sure. Absolutely. So it's olin.edu and it's S.
And just that's OLIN if anyone's not familiar, right?
OLIN.
Yep.
.edu, and I'm S. Brisson, BRISSON at Olin, OLIN.edu. And if you can't remember that, then you can go to the website and find me there. And
go to the admissions.
Be happy to exactly go to the admission team, and that's where we are.
And Susan's the director of admissions. Susan, this has been great. Thank you for giving us an hour of your time. You've been most generous.
My pleasure.
I felt we really got a deep dive on Olin, and I think it's going to be really helpful for both our college counseling community and our listeners.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's great to talk to you.
My pleasure. Friends, on Monday's episode, Jennifer Mandel, a counselor who works with me at School Match for You, will share her experience from 3 different college parent Facebook groups that she's a part of or has been a part of. And then we'll hear the final part of my interview with V. Peter Pitts, also known as the Small College Guy. And we'll be talking about his most recent book, Small College Magic. Friends, when Martin Luther King Day came, I said I was going to share an MLK quote on every episode for the rest of January. And this is our last episode for January because Monday comes, February's here. But I was having a really hard time picking my final King quote. I was vacillating back and forth. And finally, I was like, stop, just share both. So that's what I'm going to do. So here's the first one. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent of things that matter. Second quote. Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. See you on Monday, friends. And that's our show. Big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us and you will get every single episode as soon as they are released. If you want to support our podcast, you can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can say positive things about your college-bound kid on your social media feed. And you can help us stay commercial-free and pay our staff by donating on the yourcollegeboundkid website. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. And if you have a question or a recommendation, just go to speakpipe.com/YCBK, hit the orange button, and speak. We will do our best to get your question in your own voice on an upcoming episode. I am the producer of the podcast, and I live in Metro Atlanta. We have a fantastic team that has over 200 years of admissions and counseling experience. Shout out to our co-host, Dr. Lisa Ruff in North Carolina, Susan Tree in Pennsylvania, Vince Garcia in California, Julia Escobar in Massachusetts, Linda Depker in Missouri, Andy Strickler, the Chief Enrollment Officer at Connecticut College, New London, Connecticut. Hillary Dickman, an Admission Officer at Colorado College in Colorado Springs. And our International Admissions Expert, Kevin Newton in Dallas, Texas. Our sensational sound engineer is Nemanja Motvich. Our amazing music is from Victor Allen Weeks. Marketing designs from Kimberly Bloss. Our reliable webmaster is Stalionis Dimitru. Website updates are done by Joyce Stucker. Our image editor is Vlad Honchar. If you want to have a coaching session with me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you want to reach someone else on our team, all of our bios with contact info can be found at yourcollegeboundkid.com under the About YCBK tab. If you want to get our free monthly YCBK newsletter, YCBK Plus, it is also under the About YCBK tab. If you want to see our recommended books and websites, they are on our website under the Resources tab. While you're on our website, check out our hundreds of interviews in their entirety. Check out our college spotlights, our blog, and our upcoming events. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting with you every single Monday and every single Thursday.